I always see her on Tuesday mornings. Same cafe, same corner table by the window, as though the seat was made for her. She doesn't bring a book, doesn't scroll her phone, just sits there with her cup, steam drifting up between her and the street, like she's measuring time by how quickly it cools. I'd noticed her months ago. Everyone had. You couldn't not. Something about the way she carried stillness, as if the noise of the world had given up trying to touch her. Mid-40s, maybe, though age isn't the thing you see first. It's the weight behind her eyes. Widow, I'd later learn. But back then she was just the neighbor I gnawed at on the stairs, the woman at the cafe. Me? I'm 22. Too old to be a kid, too young to know much about life. Most days I end up here after classes, pretending I need the caffeine, but really I just don't want to go back to my apartment yet. My phone stays on the table, screen down. A row of unsent texts lives in there like fossils. Words to people I couldn't finish sending. That morning, she looked up when I walked in. Just once, quick, but enough to make me lose the thread of what I was about to order. Same as usual? The barista asked. I nodded, though I couldn't remember what usual meant anymore. When I turned, she was still watching me. Not staring, just curious. I gave the smallest smile. She tilted her head, almost apologetically, like she hadn't meant to be caught. I sat a few tables away, close enough to notice the way her hand traced the rim of her cup, slow, absent. She wasn't wearing a ring. She wasn't wearing much expression either, until the barista dropped a spoon and muttered under his breath. She let out the tiniest laugh, sharp, surprised, then gone. The kind of laugh you don't plan. It startled me. I realized I'd never heard her laugh before. I don't know what got into me, but when I passed her table on my way out, I stopped. You laughed, I said too blunt. Her eyebrows lifted. Did I? Yeah, I said. First time I've ever heard it. She held my gaze for a long second. Then she said, almost flatly, I haven't laughed in years. There was no drama in her tone, just fact. It should have ended there, but my mouth had other plans. Then let me make you smile tonight. Her eyes narrowed, not offended, just measuring, like she was weighing whether I was joking. I wasn't sure myself. The silence stretched. I folded the napkin in my hand once, then again, the edge going crooked. She noticed. I could tell by the quick flick of her eyes toward my hands. Then she looked back at her cup. Finally, she said, You live in the building next door, don't you? Yeah. A nod, nothing more. I took it as dismissal, so I left. Outside, the air felt colder than it was. Halfway home, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Coffee's better in the evening. Bring a story worth smiling at. I stopped walking. The screen lit my face, my pulse caught in my throat. I didn't text back right away. Just stood there, thumb hovering, wondering how something so small could feel like the beginning of something I wasn't ready for. Her apartment smelled faintly of chamomile and old books. I noticed it as soon as I stepped inside, holding the paper bag of takeout I'd offered as my story worth smiling at. She hadn't asked what I'd bring, just left her door unlocked like she knew I'd actually come. We ate at her kitchen counter, the kind of place built for one person. She kept shifting her chair to make room, and I kept bumping my elbow against hers anyway. The food didn't matter. The quiet did. At one point she asked, Don't you have friends your own age? It came out gentler than I expected. Not an accusation, more like genuine wonder. Sure, I said. But sometimes it feels like I'm always the one making the noise. No one's really listening. Her hand froze halfway to her glass, then lowered it slowly. She didn't comment, just studied me for a beat longer than comfortable. I filled the silence. When I was a kid, I'd sneak out onto the roof at night. I used to tell myself if I stared long enough, the stars would talk back. Stupid, huh? Her lips curved. Not quite a smile, but not far. Not stupid. Lonely. The word hung there, blunt but true. She turned away, pretending to adjust the window latch though it didn't need adjusting. I used to wait up for my husband, she said, almost to the glass. He worked late. I'd keep the light on, pretend I wasn't tired. After he died, I still found myself waiting. She exhaled. Habits hard to kill. I didn't know what to say. My throat tightened. Useless. Instead, I poured us both tea from the kettle she'd left warming. The cups clinked softly, filling the silence better than words. She accepted hers without looking at me. Our fingers brushed when I passed it. Light, accidental. Too light to matter. Except it did. For a second, I let myself imagine, her hand not pulling away, her leaning closer, the kind of closeness I had no right to picture. The thought was gone as quick as it came, replaced by the sting of guilt. She was old enough to be, well, not my mother, but someone's. Someone's memory, someone's grief. Still, when she finally looked at me again, her gaze lingered just a fraction longer than necessary. "You're too young to be drinking tea on a Friday night," she said, her tone dry. "Maybe," I answered, "but you're here drinking it with me." That got a real smile, small but alive. She hid it behind her cup, but I caught it. I knew she knew I caught it. Later, when I stood to leave, she touched my wrist lightly, not to hold me, just to pause me. "Thank you," she said. It was ordinary, a polite thing to say, but her fingers had stayed just a moment too long, and it felt like something else entirely. I don't know why that moment stayed with me. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. I started looking for excuses to pass by her building, pretending I had errands, though really I just wanted to see if her light was on. Most nights it was. A rectangle of amber on the second floor, curtain half drawn. That Thursday, I found her sitting on the steps outside. No tea, no book, just her, jacket pulled tight against the wind. She saw me before I had time to invent a reason for being there. "Forgot my groceries," I lied, lifting an empty hand. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me, but she didn't call me out either. We ended up walking together. Down the block, up again. No destination. Our words scattered between silences. "Don't you have classes tomorrow?" she asked. "Yeah." I shrugged. "Don't you have work?" "I quit last month." That caught me. "Why?" Her shoulders lifted, dropped. Didn't fit anymore. We didn't dig deeper. But something in her voice told me the story was heavier than she wanted to carry that night. Halfway through the walk, we ducked into a late-night shop. She bought milk. I grabbed nothing, just followed. The cashier glanced between us, quick, curious, and I felt heat crawl up the back of my neck. Did we look odd? Too mismatched? On the way out, she noticed. "People will talk," she said lightly, though the weight beneath it was obvious. I shoved my hands in my pockets. "Let them." Her steps slowed. For a moment, I thought she might stop walking altogether. Back inside her apartment, everything felt closer than usual. The space too small, the air too warm. She poured the milk into the fridge, then leaned against the counter. I leaned opposite, the room between us thinner than it had ever felt. "You shouldn't," she began, then cut herself off. "What?" Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. "Nothing." The kettle whistled, too loud, too sharp, breaking whatever thread had been holding us. She moved quickly, fussing with the stove, her back to me. I wanted to say something. Anything. Instead, I noticed my own hands, clenched at my sides, unsure whether to stay or leave. When she finally turned, 2 cups in hand, she froze. I'd stepped closer without realizing. Only a foot of space between us now. Her breath caught, just barely, but I heard it. Neither of us moved. My gaze slipped down, then back up, stopping at her mouth longer than I should have. She noticed. Of course she noticed. Her lips parted, the smallest fraction. My chest tightened. I thought, for a second, this might be it. Then her phone rang, cutting through the silence. A harsh, ordinary ringtone. She flinched, set the cups down too quickly. "I should take this," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. I nodded, though I couldn't feel my legs. When I left a few minutes later, the tea sat untouched on the counter. It rained that night. Not heavy, just enough to leave the streets shining. Every street light doubled in the puddles. She was waiting under the awning when I came back from the corner store, umbrella in hand, bag of noodles swinging at my side. "Locked myself out," she said, holding up her keys like proof. "Forgot these on the counter." I offered her my umbrella, but she shook her head. You'll get soaked. So we stood there together, the awning barely shielding us. Drops slid off the edge, close enough that we had to angle toward each other. The quiet stretched, filled only by the sound of the rain. I asked softly, "Why don't you ever laugh?" She gave a half smile that wasn't really one. "It's safer not to." That answer caught something in my chest. I don't know what made me press. Maybe the wet air, maybe the way her shoulders looked smaller in the dim light. Safe from what? Her gaze drifted out to the street. She didn't speak right away. I thought she might ignore me. But then, from wanting too much, from being reminded I can't have it. The words fell flat, but the weight of them didn't. I swallowed hard. Who says you can't? That made her look at me, properly, like she was trying to measure how serious I was. The closeness hit me then, her hair damp, her face soft but drawn. And for the first time, I caught something in her eyes that looked like fear. She stepped back half a pace, but the awning ended there, and rain tapped her shoulder. She didn't move forward again. "You're 22, she said quietly. "I'm 47. People would," her voice faded. She tried again. "I would." I wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that I didn't care, but my throat closed around the words. Instead, I stood there, bag of noodles cooling in my hand, while she shifted her gaze to the ground. "I shouldn't," she whispered. The silence after that felt too big, too sharp. I caught myself imagining her walking away, shutting the door on all of this. The thought stung more than it should have. So I said, almost without meaning to, "I don't want you to." Her head snapped up. The rain filled the pause. We looked at each other, neither of us blinking. My heart stumbled, heavy and loud. For a second, maybe less, it felt like the whole night was leaning forward with me, waiting to see if I'd move. She drew in a slow breath, lips parting as if she might finally speak the thing hanging between us. And then she stopped. Her question, quiet enough I almost missed it. "What are we doing?" After that night under the awning, things shifted. Not in a dramatic way. No slammed doors, no tearful speeches, just a quiet recalibration. She stopped waiting outside. The window that once glowed most evenings stayed dark more often than not. When we passed in the stairwell, she smiled politely, but her eyes didn't linger the way they used to. I tried to tell myself it was nothing. People get busy. People need space. But I kept remembering the way her voice had broken on that question. "What are we doing?" The next week, I saw her at the cafe again. Except she wasn't alone. A teenage girl sat across from her, headphones around her neck, scrolling a phone. The resemblance was obvious. Same cheekbones, same sharp chin. Her daughter. I hadn't known. I froze halfway to the counter, suddenly aware of how stupid I must look, just standing there. She caught my eye, just briefly, but her expression was unreadable. Not cold, not warm, just a flicker that told me I shouldn't come over. So I didn't. I ordered my drink and left before it was ready. The days after that blurred. I stopped accidentally, walking by her building. I told myself it was respect. But the truth was simpler. I didn't know how to face her. One night, my phone buzzed. A new message, her number. "Sorry if I've been distant. Things are complicated." My thumb hovered over the screen. I typed back, "I don't care if it's complicated. I just want to see you." I stared at the words. Read them again. Then I erased them. Instead, I closed the phone and left it face down on the table. The next evening, I found myself outside her door. The hall was quiet, only the hum of the elevator in the distance. I raised my hand to knock. Let it hover there. But I didn't. I walked back to my apartment instead, sat in the dark with the bag of noodles I hadn't meant to buy. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused, like life forgot to finish the sentence. Her window stayed dark that night. It happened in the least remarkable place, the laundry room in the basement. The hum of dryers, the smell of detergent thick in the air. I was pulling damp clothes from the washer when the door opened, and she stepped in, basket against her hip. We both froze. "Didn't think anyone used this late," she said, setting the basket down. Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her, fingers tugging at the hem of her sleeve. I almost muttered something ordinary, about bad timing or class schedules, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stood there, clothes dripping onto the tile. Finally, she sighed. We can't keep circling like this. I swallowed. I know. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away. She folded a towel, too precisely, like her whole concentration depended on the corners lining up. My daughter saw us that night, she said quietly. At the cafe. She asked questions. I didn't know how to answer. I nodded, throat tight. That's why you pulled back. She didn't deny it. For a moment, all I heard was the spin cycle thudding behind us. My chest felt hollow, like the noise was inside me. I'm not looking for anything, she said at last. Not really. I thought I was done. With all of it. But then, she stopped, bit her lip. Then you. I felt heat rise in my face. I set the damp clothes aside, wiped my palms on my jeans. I wasn't trying to, I know. She cut me off gently. Then softer. That's what makes it worse. I didn't know how to answer. The silence pressed in, heavy and raw. For the first time, I thought she might actually walk out and never look back. So I said the only thing I hadn't yet. I don't want you to disappear. Her head lifted. Eyes met mine. For once, she didn't look away. We stood there, both of us breathing too shallow, the hum of the machines filling in what we couldn't say. My hand twitched at my side. I wanted to reach for hers, but forced myself still. She took one step closer. Just enough that I could see the fine lines around her eyes, the damp ends of her hair from the rain outside. Her voice was low, almost a whisper. You scare me. Why? Because I don't feel old around you. The words cracked something open inside me. I didn't move. Neither did she. But the space between us softened. And when her fingers brushed mine, light, tentative, I let them stay. No kiss. No grand promises. Just her hand, warm against mine, and the faintest, tired smile that looked like it had been waiting years to surface. Okay, she said. And somehow, that was enough. Time didn't change everything overnight. It never does. Some weeks we didn't see each other at all. Her schedule, my classes, the gravity of real life, pulling us in separate orbits. But slowly, without anyone announcing it, we found a rhythm. Morning routines became our language. Sometimes it was her light switching on at 8:47 a.m., a signal that she was awake and the world was starting. Sometimes it was me dropping by the cafe, knowing she'd already be there, cup cooling between her hands. She never ordered food. I always did. And when the barista accidentally remembered her coffee as black, no cream, no sugar, she looked across the table at me and raised an eyebrow, like she knew I'd mentioned it. Evenings settled differently. Tea in chipped cups, the kettle whistling too loud, both of us leaning on the counter while the quiet stretched. She'd tell me about her daughter's questions, not all of them comfortable. I told her about the rooftop nights when I was a kid, waiting for the stars to answer. The conversations didn't solve anything. They didn't need to. They just kept us tethered. One night, we ended up back on the bench by her building, the same one from months earlier. Rain this time too, though lighter, the kind that makes the street smell sharp and new. We didn't huddle under an awning. We just sat, sharing an umbrella too small for two, our shoulders pressed together in the narrow space. She said, "You know, I don't wait up anymore. Not the way I used to." I glanced at her. Why not? Her smile was quiet, almost shy. Because someone's already here. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. I just let my hand find hers on the bench, not tentative this time, not hidden. She didn't pull away. The moment wasn't cinematic. It was damp jeans, half-soggy noodles from the takeout bag between us, rain dripping down my wrist. But it was real, and it was ours. I don't think either of us believed in forever, not in the way people talk about it. But we believed in this. In black coffee at 8:47. In tea on a Friday night. In the simple act of showing up again and again. That was enough. And years later, when someone asked me how it started, I thought about the first words she ever said that stayed with me. I haven't laughed in years. I smiled when I answered. She does now.